Inherited their old phone. Sorry,
Oh, that's unfortunate.
no, it's never gonna get stolen in this county.
That's true. That's
You could just
true.
leave it anywhere.
Don't put a dark case on it, keep it pink. Funny. Well.
Hey, Mary.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Ben's pen. if you
No,
want.
thank you. I got it.
No, those elections, day after tomorrow. Oh, supposed to be 7 to 5 and sunny. Good.
Relatives are talking about 112 in Texas. I'll take this. I can't imagine.
Well, somebody was reminding me that it was around this time last year that we had that super hot.
We're gonna try. Yeah.
So it was like much brighter than that. Yeah. No fires.
Jeff, I will rely on you to look for hands. Mr. Chairman, sir, can I rely on you to look for hands? Sure.
Hands up.
So was Val appointed to the BRB?
She was.
Okay, you need to give her my name.
She knows your name now. Everyone knows you, Mary.
She needs to come to the BRB conference. And I will tell the BRB boundary review board. Fingernail. Yeah, we're having a conference here because I'm the president elect. For Association of Boundary Review Board this is next year. So it's held in our county.
Is that one of the things where you missed the meeting and they appointed you, or was that?
No.
an honor you saw?
Yeah, it was like nobody else stood out.
After the pledge of allegiance, everyone sat down and Mary was left standing up.
Yes, I was thinking my country, there's something that everybody's. So. Yeah, there's so much development pressure now with some of these are kind of DRBs do annexations and other things. And basically they're selected, not elected by the municipality. So they don't have any political, I just say, any politics in the game. They have to follow RCWs when they do annexations. And they don't get unelected. If they pick the wrong one.
Two minutes.
Countdown.
Well, that clock says it's already 6:01.
I was just going by.
You trust the computer.
No.
So
Just the
comp plan amendment should be finished tonight.
The public release draft, if you guys. get that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The Board of Commissioners Climate Action Plan went out in June.
I just got an email about it, and I didn't look at their
I know
dates.
there's
I know
a
they
60-day
hearings
comment period.
this week on it.
You all might want to take a look at it.
I have 1,800 hours.
Well, that computer says 5:59, maybe. It's slower than you. Can always do a countdown. It should go.
Let's get started. I don't think anyone will object. Good evening. Welcome. Let's go around the table and just do introductions and also have folks, if we have anybody up there,
We're sorry.
we're sorry,
It's
yeah, Chris. Yeah. So let's go around. Jeff Breckel, Planning Commission member and chair.
I'm Tony Lawson, a guest interested in the vacancy.
Oh, yeah. Nice. I got it.
Welcome, Tony.
David Settler, Planning Commission.
Dave, you're right, planning commissioner, also running to be your third district congressional representative.
Good for you, David.
Ben Shoemaker, staff to the Planning Commission.
Ann Kazee, Planning Commission.
Darren Rutledge, Stevenson resident.
Pat Rice, Stevenson resident.
Mary Rapar, Stevenson resident. This one's this one.
That's a nice.
We obviously have Joanna.
It's in the panelists section.
She never says anything.
Okay. Let's get started. Ben, do you want to go through how folks online can deal with this?
Right, so it's easier since it's just, nobody appears to be there by phone. So finding the controls for raising hands is all, and we will do our best to monitor that to allow comment.
That's pretty simple. We're a pretty small group tonight. So let's try and work through the agenda as best we can, but let's not be too formal. So pull up to the table. You're too far back, that I want to be able to see you. All right, thanks. Let's go to the public comment period for items not on the agenda. Mary.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mary Rapar, Stevenson. I just want to make some general comments about development in our community. You know, things change, people die, they move away, the community changes, but it's becoming a bit frustrating to see newcomers come into our community, and our comprehensive plan says that we are a small town flavor. We don't have a small town flavor when you're building $600,000 and $700,000 homes. If they were cottages, that might contribute to that flavor. But and also this demand for all the trappings of civilization, like sidewalks and other things. Those are, if you live in a rural community, you don't have all the amenities of a metropolitan area. And those things all cost money. And I think our city has been spending way too much money. We need to take care of the things that we have and not build new things for newcomers just because they want them. It creates a lot of frustration in the community members who actually live here and have contributed to the community for many, many years. And you know, like I say, things change, things will settle out, but there should be like a code of the West. When you come to an area that you don't really know how things work, maybe live there for a little bit and get to know the area, and then figure out how to live within the means of that area. And not all those things that most people come to rural areas to get away from. And then they start bringing everything with them. So that's my general comment. And I think we all need to push the city to give Dave Prosser his paved road. I'm tired of hearing him bitch about it for the last 20 years. It needs to be done. And, you know, we can always find new roads to build and do, but he's been here for a long time and his road and the road of the people live on needs to be paved. That's it.
Thanks, Mary. Any comments from planning commission members?
I'd like to jump in and say a little bit about my candidacy for the third congressional district. When people ask me why I'm doing it, it's my first impulse is to say I have grandchildren. And what's behind that is that I'm alarmed at the way things are going. And I wanted to make a difference, and I don't want to leave the world in this shape. So, yeah, the Democratic Party, the local Democratic Party is kind of mad at me because I didn't get out of the race. They're supporting somebody else. But
Hey, nobody's mad at you.
I talked to my family and they said, do what your heart tells you to do. So that's
for
what I'm
you.
doing.
Good for you. The more the merrier. Good luck, Dave.
Thank you.
Encourage people to become engaged. Having
Yeah,
spent a few years, not as an elected official, but a lot of time dealing with Congress. Would be nice to see us get back to where we can work across the aisle to get something done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other comment? Okay. Let us move then to the minutes of the May 9th, 2022 meeting. I was not present there, so I will not vote, but I'm willing to hear whether you have any corrections or additions, deletions, modifications, or other thoughts that you think need to be included to provide an accurate representation of the May 22nd.
I was present, and I find the minutes accurate.
I concur.
I do as well.
So we have a motion.
I would motion to approve.
We have a motion from August and a second from Davey. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. New business. Planning Commission, prospective Planning Commission member interviews.
One had said that he would be online and is not yet, so we
Okay.
do have one in attendance here, and I
Alright.
think you are free to go forward. I provided you with the cover staff report for all of those with three preloaded questions, so you can ask whatever you want.
Sure.
And the information submitted by both interested parties.
Can I offer a suggestion? We'll move to the short plat 5, and then we'll come back to 4, maybe when the other person shows up. Unless there's any objection.
I hear no objection. Okay. Then let's go to the short plat. Although I don't think that's going to take much time.
But we can, so you have two short plats applications for adjacent property that have been submitted to the city. All short plats, once they're submitted, I distribute them to the planning commission, to the city administrator, to the city clerk treasurer, to the county treasurer, to the public works department and Department of Health for comments. The planning commission in getting the short plat is offered the opportunity to review and provide your own comments. Generally recommend that you leave it to staff unless there's anything extremely detailed or controversial about a project. I don't believe that that's the case for either of these two. So suggesting that you entrust the decision-making to staff.
Any thoughts?
Go ahead.
I looked over them and I did not see an issue. So I think this looks fine.
So just to clarify, by splitting this into two short plats, it eliminates the need for a larger planning.
It does not. So the threshold would be 4 lots. Or
Either.
4 lots is a short plat, 5 lots is a subdivision.
Right.
Some communities have regulations to say that if you have adjacent lots and dividing them at the same time, if that total number is 5 or more, then you're in the subdivision process no matter what. We don't have that regulation. And in any case, it's 4 and not.
Is there road access?
There is, so they are adjacent to Vancouver Avenue.
So was the house split previous to these 4 being split apart?
There were,
Which lot is that?
there are 3 homes under construction right now. So Lasher Street intersection, there's an existing set of duplexes there. And then under construction, there are
Oh,
three
Richard's old
homes
property. Okay.
in a row. And then there's the red house that's higher up on the hill. And so the footprint of the red house is on here and it's still there. That straddles 2 pre-existing legal lots of record that were done in the 40s, I believe. And then there were 2 more adjacent to that. Each of those 2 more are where these short plat requests are. So currently that property owner owns all 4 of the homes and 4 legal lots of record. If approved, they would own 6 legal lots of record. But the land division was done for the original 4 lots of record. But that land division was from the 1940s.
And they couldn't have done this through a lot line adjustment? No.
Because they are creating another lot.
Where?
Sounds Vancouver, I think, isn't it?
The lot
Well, no,
line-
no, I know the property. I
I mean,
mean,
there's still-
where's the land that become
Oh, well,
another
yeah,
lot?
yeah.
Between the red
Is there a
house and the westmost house under construction.
So there would be a vacant one there and then there would be a new lot line between the 2 easternmost ones. So it's R3 multifamily lots. Those were approved as a multifamily use on a multifamily lot. This would just put a boundary line in between.
Red house.
So what's the lot size?
It's proposed on here. So they vary between 3,500 to 4,500.
Isn't our minimum lot size 5,000?
That's for R2.
And this is our free?
This is R3, yes. The minimum
Because
is.
he's got he has a driveway. And there's not that much room between the driveway and the next house.
He's got access easement shown on the proposals here.
And his driveway is very steep. I don't know how it was allowed.
The thoughts?
Minimum lot size is 26.
2,000.
2,000. So all of them meet that. I don't have any thorns.
Davey?
Nope.
Yeah. Deferring to Ben then to carry this through on an administrative approach.
I would motion to have Ben continue on an administrative approach on that.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Oh, same sign.
Well, I love it when it goes like this.
Not nice. Move on down the agenda if you'd like.
What was that, Ben?
Can you continue on down the agenda or?
Yeah, let's go to the comprehensive plan.
The comprehensive plan amendment that was submitted in 2019 has been working its way through your review toward a public release draft. I think that tonight it's very possible for you to get to that public release draft and then decide what you want to do with that public release draft.
There's only a few bullet points
Yeah.
left, right?
There's just those top three and then the number 8 to get to green on that in public release.
Okay,
And then once you get there, it's setting those conscientious public involvement expectations for the next phases of
yeah,
this review.
let's wrap this up.
Amen.
Okay. Anyone want to start at a specific place? Start.
Yeah.
Top on goals. Okay, so the goal statements appear on pages 11 and 45 of the comprehensive plan. And the proposal would create 2 sub goals under goal number 8, which is related to utilities and public services. Those, as drafted, those sub goals would be 8A, level of service. The community receives urban services at or above a set level of service. And then the objectives of that goal help to meet them. 8B, capital facilities planning. Urban services are provided according to a rational plan, aligning the community's expectations with its capabilities. This is one that it's just kind of the general one, which we always end up skipping over to get some more detailed stuff.
Everything's pretty much green, correct?
Yeah, in the document, anything that's yellow, it has not yet received approval for public release draft.
Okay, so page 47 has one word. Temporarily.
This one was requested. the last time we got that far.
So then are we looking at what you have on page 45? Community receives urban services at or above the set level of service?
That's where it all starts.
I have a copy of the original plans, if anybody needs to see.
So if we're just going to work through, start on page 45, are there any thoughts on the text that's there?
I have no problem with how it's written.
I don't think it's all good.
Davey?
Yeah, what do you guys?
These things are multitasking. So maybe I've got the flip pages from the S&P comprehensive plan amendments. They replace existing pages in there that are printing now. If anyone else has a paper copy, let me know and I'll print them off.
I do, I love one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great educational tool.
Yeah, I do too, Ben. please.
Did that get thumbs up?
Yes, it did.
Yes.
Do you walk away and look what happens?
We get stuff done.
Leave the marker there next time and
Yeah. we'll be
And you
good.
don't need that red marker, you just need the green. Thank you. Power of positive thinking. So the next one is on, if we're gonna go through all of those, or you're good with it?
Got a green dot.
Good,
Moving on.
perfect. So easy.
So this is where the real changes start occurring. In these first few pages, they're just struck outs and replaced later on in either 8A or 8B. So 46 is struck out and then they reappear in 28.
So they're not really changes, it's just moved.
Well, with the exception of temporarily, which
Yeah, that's the
Is
one
what-
word on page
August,
47.
I understand. Wanted to see it there, and I think that's a good addition.
Yeah,
Word count.
yeah, they do.
Word count always
Was that a thumbs up for that?
comes up.
Was it also going to be a thumbs up for this?
Capital facilities plan, where's that?
So it's page 46 and page
47.
81 and 85, which we did. And page 50. 8B1, 8B2.
So in some sense, or this is largely a reorganization in some ways.
Reorganize of most of that stuff. We'll see like, that's specific to that, so 8B.
Yeah.
Does reappear in some other sections. Yeah.
And I have no problem notes written.
2 thumbs, 3 thumbs.
They get 4.
Okay. Integrating the system of plans. So this is really one of the big efforts of this is that the overall capital facilities plan is to look at all our systems at once. So instead of paving over a road where we know that there's a water project that's necessary, we're going to prioritize the water projects and then the road paving project later on. And get all those plans in one place in one list. And so integrating those together within the system appears several places throughout the document in earlier goals in addition to goal aids. Common language for that would be something like where it says to develop a public art plan. There's an added text that says and incorporate its projects into the capital facilities plan.
Yes.
So you're not forgetting about that art plan somewhere. You're building it in. One forward. Okay. Last one on this is non-city utility coordination. It's just another it's one step beyond that. So we're coordinating our city plans. We're also working to coordinate the UD, the telecom, gas, and projects together. And that is 46, 47, 48, 49.
That thumbs up for me on that one, Ben.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Good. Okay, Mary, I didn't have that. I don't have a little blue check on it. So that.
And someone at the workshop the other day said that you all have the document for your right of way, but there's no survey. So knowing how things happen in our little town and over time, houses have moved and wiggled their way over boundaries and things have been built on other people's properties sometimes. And the roads might not be where your actual documents say they are.
Where I was going to that spot at full For objective 7.2, I'm looking at page 42 of the comprehensive plan. And this says, "Will manage the transportation system in a manner that contributes to community appearance and livability, recognition of characteristics of natural features, and minimizes effects of flooding land uses." In there, I was going to include language related to that. I didn't ever even type that out. I just found where it was and got sidetracked. So
I just think it behooves the city to know what exactly they own. Now, there might be something that you can't do anything about, but at least you should know that. And homeowners should have that information too, so that they know what they're allowed and what they're not, and what they might lose. And what they might gain maybe as time goes on.
So two ways to proceed without that. Direct me to include some language there as part of the public release draft, or bring it back to you next meeting.
So where are we looking, Ben? We're in the document.
Page 42 of the comprehensive plan, page 32 of the within the gray box. So let's do this.
Page 42.
What kind of language did you have in mind?
The intent would be to have citywide inventory of surveyed right of ways. And so the language would be something like develop surveys for existing city right of ways.
Which could be a grant proposal or something like that in the future.
Yeah, something to go into the maintenance budget if there's anything related to that. The typical process is that we do everything grant fund, every project with grant funds. And so we include within our grant proposal preliminary engineering, which includes the preliminary survey work to capture grades, valves, and water.
Did they do any survey when they ran the sewer back up?
So there's some existing surveys, and some homeowners have surveys too that are on record. But that should be like put together and in a GIS overlay.
That's way too urban, Mary.
No, don't be funny.
I have no problem with Ben putting the words together, so that we don't have to revisit it a month later.
I want to make sure I really understand the problem we're trying to solve with that. I mean, I understand that if you're looking at, property surveys, some of the subdivisions have been approved. We all have those right of ways are surveyed. So there is some subset of city streets where we have surveys. There are others where we don't. And I guess, Mary, what's the problem?
The problem is that our people are demanding sidewalks in older sections of the town.
Mhm.
And some of those sidewalks are going to be under people's windows. Unless there's a difference, unless you know where the right of way is and where the city property is. If the sidewalk was built tomorrow, some people would have those sidewalks right under their windows in certain areas. So what if it shouldn't really be there? What if the city doesn't own that property? So does the homeowner have to have a survey to prove the city doesn't own that much land? And you can't rely, and I believe somebody official said this at the workshop, you can't rely on where the center lines are on our roads
Mhm.
to know where your right of way is.
Yeah, we talked
So
about
I
that.
think it behooves us to know. And it should be something that's part of planning. If you don't have all the data, and if you just don't want to know because it's going to create problems, that's one thing. But as we get more and more push for these amenities, I think the city should know. Otherwise, there might be lawsuits in our future, and those are way more expensive than doing a survey or putting the surveys together into a database.
I'm just trying to look for a logical approach here to head off problems. You know, we could say, gosh, we need to survey all unsurveyed road right of ways. And that's quite an expense. And what I'm thinking is, how do you prioritize that kind of work and investment where you need it? I mean, if we're saying, well, we'd like to do sidewalks in these certain areas, isn't that part of the planning? Wouldn't we do a survey as part of that to determine whether or not it was practical? So
That's
it's more project oriented in terms of when you do a survey, rather than just simply saying, we need to survey all unsurveyed
Well,
right of
Karen,
ways.
Pat and Karen, did you know where the boundaries of your property were when you bought it?
I know where they're at now.
Yeah, we did, I don't think we did that.
And
But
so,
we have had it surveyed.
in addition to like the public project component of it, there's an educational component where we can say, yeah, there's, it depends on what form this takes. If we just had a digital database of the survey work, you could go into that and measure off of the overhead utility line that's identified on there to find where the property line. There's a second step, and we require this step of subdivisions, not short plats, but where they are to go in and set a monument at the center line of the road. I don't mean the center line where the stripe line is, I mean the center of that right of way. And so anybody who has some guidance can go out there, find a monument, pull a tape 30 feet, pull a tape 25 feet, and find the edge of the right of way and have that information at their fingertips. So we will continue to do it at a project specific basis, no matter what, because that's how all those are set up, so that we don't pour a sidewalk under somebody or on somebody's property. And if we did that, we wouldn't be reimbursed for the funding, and our whole structure for improving a roadway falls apart if we don't have that grant funds.
Well, I like the idea of having perhaps a GIS based system you can query for it, where it has been surveyed. So you have all the existing surveys, you know, what's been surveyed and what hasn't been. And then as you need in terms of anticipating or planning projects, then you survey and edit that to that database.
Well, yeah, but and you have to start somewhere, so that you first have to put it in the document. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, I'm trying to, the only thing was, rather than just simply say we ought to survey all unsurveyed right of ways, that doesn't really set a priority for us, and it's expensive work. And so how do we do it in a way that heads off the types of issues that you're raising?
Project-based, like we were talking about.
Project base, or we compile the data that's already out there so it's in a more useful
You first
form.
have to, you compile the existing data, then you have, your next step is to do project-based surveys. And then you have your GIS overlay from all that data. And then at some point you will have
Over time, hopefully.
yes,
You'll know
over
your
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you
But
have, you
it's
sort
a
of,
building process.
Yeah. what do you have and what do you need to add to address your projects,
Yeah.
your capital improvement projects? And over time, hopefully, you pick everything up. Probably not in my lifetime,
So,
but
70 is the new 60.
Mr. Rice said something to say.
No, just Ben had asked if we known where the things that, a lot of surveys, there's either corner pins to be set, have to be recorded. And so a lot of times there aren't corner pins on people's lots, or they don't know, that's why it depends. So I would think the city, I do know, and I don't know who was right, if there was even an issue, I do know that up here, when this street was put in up here, there were some property owners that say, I know 2 cases where property, I don't know if it's true or not, but different property owners have told me in recent times that that where the street was and where the property was, that there was a conflict.
What, Delray?
No. But like the Eshes that lived on 90 Northwest Delray at one point, I know that at times when they had it surveyed, they were saying there was something wrong with where the city had their sidewalk. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I know it was definitely an issue in their mind for a brief period of time. So I don't know if they were right or not, because I don't. But then I know that over on School Street, there was a property owner over there. And had a survey done recently and was complaining to me that the survey went onto the street. So I would just think what you're saying, getting at, Mary, is anytime there's an expensive capital improvement project, that the city should really know where, and I'm not saying they don't, behoove them to know. And I would think a survey would be pretty cheap if you're putting in a several $100,000 street. If there aren't corner pins there, I mean, a survey is gonna be cheap, $1,000 bucks. So I would think that, and Ben's saying that's part of the process. So I would just think as you spend money, especially the more you spend,
Especially if you're putting in sewer and.
yeah,
and
there's
water
a-
lines
and just the
everything.
center line may be, I mean, we know this, Union County, you're right. Ever since I've lived here, there's fights over boundaries. Even the property we bought up on Maple Alameda is, I mean, that whole neighborhood's been fighting over boundaries, I guess, since time immemorial. So, I mean, for me, really, I've talked to different people, so you're right, actually, so the city to not compound the problem, you're just saying, and maybe they already do it. When they spend a lot of money, they make sure they know.
But it would, yeah, but I agree with Mary, we should compile what we have out there in terms of surveys, so it's useful.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of GIS. So I think that would be, a way to go. We've got a GIS, don't we?
We have a contract with the county, I believe, don't we?
Yeah. We rely on the county for that service and are exploring ways to expand.
And then the other thing is, I think in terms of setting priorities, you don't do a major capital project without making sure that you've got a survey. So it's a project. The additional data is project driven, so it sets the priority.
Well, and then if you do have a capital project, and you're going to get grants for it, can't you ask for that to be part of that grant?
Oh, sure.
So then, yeah, so then, it all gets kind of, that's what I envision at any rate. But, knowledge is good. And the better the knowledge that our residents have about how to develop their properties or how to look out for their rights, basically, over time, the better it is.
Yeah, I agree. Ben, you feel like you've got enough from this conversation? We're all in general agreement.
To include this in a public release round.
You feel like you've got
Yeah.
enough?
And I've got develop a citywide inventory of surveys for rights of way.
And ensure that right of ways are surveyed before future public facility projects.
I just say one of the-
Timeline on the inventory, and says Ben has to have them complete within 30 days.
Just going to public.
Shouldn't
So,
take
yeah,
that
anytime
long.
anyway.
What do you want to say?
Shorter
Ken?
than that, yeah.
I just remember a survey, I've dealt with a couple of surveyors since we moved here, and one surveyor was joking, this is why you would probably get surveys, he said, pins have a way of moving sometimes, that's all. So it was kind of,
Oh,
I thought, well, they would know, I guess, more than anybody. So,
That's why you have buried ones.
so that's why probably verifying, trust, but verifying.
Well, my experience with surveyors has been they can start at the same monument and they can end up with different points.
Yeah.
And everyone recorded.
Yes, that's right.
That's what they call the hat variation. That's kind of an accepted practice. It's within the range of a hat.
Okay,
Okay. Good. So we can move to the conscientious public involvement. How do you want to get this out there? The process requires you to hold a public hearing and city council to hold a public hearing on any comprehensive plan amendment. So your discussion should be about supplementing. Supplementing that in the conscientious fashion. I have in there the excerpts from your bylaws from the effort we went through last year, establishing what to go through, and that is really in two parts. So there's the visual for what the process is, the call to acts, and then establishing the public involvement methods and an understanding that where you begin may not be where you end. So there's a refining process, and each one of those refining processes really starts the feedback loop for how you engage the public and do the check-in and finally decide. That is on page 56 of the overall document. That's within the gray box where those numbers are. Page 57 begins your menu of different public involvement methods that we came up with for the bylaw amendment. So kind of just exploring that. I'm hoping for you to decide what we do and who does that.
That's well, basically what we've done is we've gone through the comprehensive plan and we've woven in capital facilities plan. I worry a little bit about our list here. If we were to put that out, people's eyes might pretty much just glaze over. We won't generate much interest. So somehow we need to be able to relate what's embodied in these changes in some plain English that will give folks a sense and then lead them on. I think if they need additional information or focus, they can get there. But this is, potentially something that, it is something that every citizen ought to be interested in because the city provides services to every resident. Every resident uses the capital facilities that the city owns and maintains and operates. So it seems to me that there needs to be some way to contact.
Well, to get them
Person.
interested in it, because people will be interested in what impacts them and their lives. And you had a good turnout for the comp plan in 2013. I mean, the community was greatly involved. And I can't remember how that came about, but we had workshops up at the elementary school and everything. And all the tables were filled, if I remember correctly. So what is there about this update that would bring that same participation?
Do you remember, Mary, how those were organized? How did, what did you do in advance to bring people to the table of those meetings? Do you recall?
Here. No.
Well, that would work for us.
I can't
First,
remember.
the paper had something about how it was gonna cost everybody more money, and that got a lot of them.
Well, there was, I can't, because everybody was interested, the schools, even the library, and other people. So maybe look at the PR that went out about it, because there was a lot of, the public participation plan, the PPP, was followed for those meetings. And everything that happened at those meetings was recorded and then talked about to the people the next time so that everybody knew what had happened at the last meeting.
So we have to have a hearing. That's
Mm.
one requirement. The planning commission has to have a hearing. The city council has to have a hearing. Now, do we do a separate workshop? Do we combine a hearing with the workshop? Well, it seems to me we can put those things together, but we still need to have that tease out there that brings people to those workshops or those meetings, something that says, yes, you should be interested in what we're discussing. And maybe it's going through and it's looking at the changes that we've made here and the intent of the city to make its public facilities planning more effective, more efficient. But I think perhaps telling folks, hey, the city provides this array of services. We're seeing considerable growth in our city. These facilities in some cases are aging. They need to be maintained, they need to be upgraded, they need to be expanded. And how do we do that in an orderly way that meets the needs of the residents? What we're talking about in terms of that are sewer, water, roads,
Water
sidewalks.
plant in this facility plan?
No. Is it? Water, sewer? Yeah, water and sewer in there.
I mean, the water plant.
We've got a water plan that was done in 2018.
Yeah.
And it identified a capital improvement plan for the water system.
How much is that gonna cost?
Oh.
That might be a good teaser.
Well,
You saw your sewer bill go up, just wait until you see the water. plant.
Just put the Kanaka Creek overpass.
Well, I think most folks would appreciate the fact too, that you're gonna try and coordinate that work, so it's done as efficiently as possible. You don't have one utility tearing up the street. And then
Another one
6
the
months
next week.
later, another one tears it up. You know, at public expense. But I think there's some work that's needs to be done in order to, I don't know, put out a one-page thing, perhaps, you know, as a mailer.
And are there major changes, and then minor changes that would impact people's lives? But frankly, I do think you need like an informational meeting before you have anything, to let people know that this is what is happening, and then have the public hearing, and then the city council, at least have one public workshop where you invite people. You might see that they might have more questions, or you might have an angry mob at your doors, who knows? But I think, 3 meetings should get it across.
3,
Well, 1 workshop and 2 public hearings.
what are other?
Solid plan.
You can do it down at Hagewald and have pretty pictures maybe, and people can walk around and I don't know, but.
Sounds like we found our party planner.
She's just gonna bring the beer.
It always makes it easier. But I think it just, there's so many changes. Now, I don't think that they're like the 2013 changes. But I do think that they are impactful.
Well, they are, because they really are the city's capital facilities and the services that they provide for that, and that is a cost that every citizen pays, Davey, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of with August.
So we're thinking a workshop. And then, and then our planning commission hearing,
Mhm.
and then our recommendations and the workshop results to the city council for their hearing.
So
And
the
so,
workshop will give you some idea of numbers. So you probably can't have, if you have 50 people or 100 people, you're not gonna have your meeting here. So at least it gives you some sense of where you're gonna have it.
well, I think, Mary, it goes to how do you generate the interest in the community? And I think a one page that goes out, a one pager that says, hey, here's why you ought to be interested in this. Again, it's,
You need a PR person then.
That's what all of you are for.
The Hegewald sounds, like a proper flip.
Yeah, Rock Creek.
yeah, I would agree.
Give us flexibility on that, but yeah, a meeting room adequate to host several people.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of the lodge.
Which lodge? We can go to Snoqualmie
I-
Falls. I don't know,
Yeah,
where you wanna go?
the auditorium, not the sunshine. Yeah.
So we're sort of laying out a process here of putting out a notice, a one pager to generate citizen interest, a workshop located in a suitable location for what we expect, and then 2 public hearings. Well, those are the required public hearings. So we're starting to flesh that out.
Is this what happened at the last one? A workshop and 2 public hearings?
For the 2013 is much bigger than that because we completely rewrote the comprehensive plan. And as part of the rewrite of the comprehensive plan, we adopted amendment procedures that help ensure that reviewing amendments is easier. So you review it to see if it's consistent. There are several criteria. You can completely redo a plan if you go down that route, or you can go through this every 2-year biennial amendment cycle to just review what's been proposed within that 2 years versus what's in the plan and be able to filter through the potential changes more easily or efficiently.
So how many people would you anticipate attending the workshop?
For that one, there were a lot of
Yeah,
people,
there
and
were
it was consistent. It didn't dwindle. And that, so I would reckon at least 50.
That was for a complete update.
No, we had way over 50.
Well, I'm just saying.
Was it more than one meeting? Yeah, we had,
Yeah,
were there 3 workshops?
87 at community workshop number 1, and there were 61 at community workshop number 2.
And lots of input.
In total, 714 total participation opportunities engaged. So some of those were the same people at the various things. So steering committee, community leader interviews, community questionnaire respondents, kids opinion count photographers, community workshop number 1. Tell us your 2 cents worth. Community workshop number 2, planning commission members, planning commission hearing speakers, city council members, city council hearing speakers, adds up to over 700.
After the workshop, were there many changes to the plan?
The workshop, yes, but it was set up because it was a rewrite. And
Yeah.
so we stripped everything down, and then the effort after that was which of these existing goals should still be included.
Yes, this is a much more modest thing, but I think you could easily expect 50 people. Again, because
Yeah.
I think this has a real direct impact on folks. And if you put out a good information, okay, I'm trying to be like, a good informational package that explains why they should care about that.
Well,
And I
by the
think
time we
also-
get around to it, it's gonna be 10 years old, so.
And I think we can get something in the paper too. I know Philip would probably be more than interested in doing that. So I think that's sort of in, that advance work, why should people care about addressing capital facilities in the comprehensive plan? I mean, if you just put it that way, there's not many folks that are.
Well,
Yay, capital facilities, woo-hoo.
well, people showed up for the workshop this last week, so, they're interested in capital facilities.
But I also think that
Oh,
the
the road
reason so
one.
many showed up is because they identified with the particular projects that were being discussed.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of related to what you knew
Yeah,
where you
it's
lived,
project.
and there was various interests.
Well, yeah, and there was a good flyer that went out. I think
Yeah,
it
I
would
thought that
generate a
was-
lot of
Yeah.
interest. That's why I mean, if you just announced that you were doing a transportation plan workshop.
It wasn't the flyer that brought people here. It was community organization against a project. that
Oh,
brought people to
okay.
it.
What project?
Kanaka Creek underpass, whether that should remain open and maintained or closed off for pedestrian use only.
We're still working on that, right? Still considering that?
Nothing's been
The
decided.
workshop was last week, and then the city council will make a decision on that on Thursday. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't the city's flyer that brought people to that, but that's the power of what some of these ideas in here is the informal community and interest networks. So how are you guys going to generate a buzz to get people there? Or you're just going to say, staff, make sure people are at my meeting.
Do you want a sidewalk under your window? That might generate some interest.
Double water rates next year.
Yeah.
I think that's already been approved.
And I'll say, what's hard with this one is staff put this together because of what was handed to them in that these things weren't coordinated. And so the extra millions of dollars that wasn't anticipated for the sewer plan this is an effort to say, okay, how do we avoid that and make sure that we're doing the capital facilities planning and upkeep instead of just letting it go. And
Well, the
so
commercials should be
staff doing
very
things,
interested in that, shouldn't
and it's
they?
enshrining this as an expectation for the future so that future generations of staff don't have the same problems delivered to their desk.
How many moratoriums are in place?
One currently,
Which one?
the new sewer connection above residential stream.
You know, that might bring in the commercials.
It might, but I also think too, when you start talking about city sewer and water rates,
Mm.
historically,
Yeah,
historically, that generates a lot of interest out there. And I think, again, you look at the demands that we're seeing for, service demands for growth. You're looking at aging facilities that are going to have to be upgraded to continue to provide the level of service that, people have come to expect. And that comes at a cost. And how do we do that in a way that minimizes the cost and cost increases?
Is bigger better? Not necessarily.
I think that everybody in the city can feel the changes that are going on and that there's a pressure happening. If you take it from the standpoint of how do you want to see your city grow, the changes that are happening, that are coming at us and how we're going to have to change, I think you might get some interest there. Come and participate.
I agree. I think that's a good way to approach it, because I think people do feel, they know growth is coming and they know it's impacting them. And I think it doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in, you know that change is coming. And that also implies also maybe costs, maybe congestion, maybe traffic. I mean, that encompasses everything, growth.
And I think most people have a concern and a loyalty towards the city. So that if you kind of muster their civic pride, you might get them down to feel more partners in what this is accomplishing.
Well, is bigger better? How much growth do you want to see in your city? How much can you control it and stop it if necessary? If it impacts your life so that you have to move away and you can't afford to live here anymore. Those older people are struggling with paying their taxes. And then they get higher water bills and other things, and suddenly you're making choices between food and medicine and paying the bills.
Well, so I know I beat this drum all the time, but we're probably going to start dealing with climate refugees pretty soon if we aren't already. And we are growing. I mean, you live on Osprey Ridge, right?
Yeah, Angel Heights Road.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, we're seeing growth on this side, that side,
And climate change isn't part of the comp plan, is it? We touched on it very, very briefly ages and ages ago, but Mosher's Aquifer is failing, going downhill fast. You remember how white salmon had a 3-year boiling water thing in place. Remember the little signs?
Mhm.
Don't drink it unless you boil it. And that lasted for 3 years. Home Valley wants more water. They're looking for a new reservoir. What, all this water means nothing because it's going downhill and that away.
Well, it was funny when I was working in Bingen. You know, the water in white salmon tasted fine, but you go down to Bingen and it tasted awful. So, sorry, sidebar.
That was the gray water. that came
Yeah.
out. Which type stuff?
Thank you, yes, for that.
It runs downhill. That's-
TMI.
Yes, it does. Gravity, man.
Now, you know,
So do you get the gist?
One thing I struggle with is scope creep on the amendment.
Mm,
And so if it's time to just rewrite the comprehensive plan, it might be time to rewrite the comprehensive plan. If it's time to just evaluate the amendment that was proposed in 2019, then making sure your public involvement effort is tailored to that instead of like, you know,
Yeah,
is bigger, better, and the land use utility connection isn't something that's being made in these proposals. Very well. And it could lead to that, and we can keep pulling the thread forever. But I guess I want kind of your thoughts on that concern that I have.
Yeah, Ben, when would we normally go back and relook at the whole comprehensive plan? I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring capital facilities in so they support an existing comprehensive plan.
Well, typically, I think it's a 10-year thing, isn't it? So this seems like it might be just trying to postpone that.
If, yeah, so in the faster growth, bigger communities of the state, they're required to do planning in a different way than we're required to do planning. And their requirements include a 10-year review. That 10-year review is limited to an evaluation of legislative changes that have occurred in the interim.
Right.
So it itself is limited. The state isn't saying every community go in and rewrite your comprehensive plan. They are assuming that public will drive comprehensive plan amendments in the interim, and they allow for that. But at the 10-year mark, they say re-review for all these things that are different from your last time around.
No, I'm completely satisfied with the amendments that we're making to this. This one's actually fine, I think. I didn't, I read the thing from cover to cover and I didn't see anything glaring that needed, I mean, we've addressed most of the stuff that I think needed to be addressed.
But if you were to say, gosh, we're not going to be looking at the comprehensive plan for another 5 years or another 8 years or another 10 years, well, you don't want to wait
yeah.
to do this until you're going to tee up the full plan. You don't want that delay to keep you from doing the right thing now. And so I think we should be pretty clear in terms of what the scope of this is. And it's to provide for better capital facilities planning in the overall city growth. And
tell them what capital facilities are. People
Yeah.
don't understand that,
I think they have to go to Olympia to see capital.
Washington,
No, I
DC.
mean, they do understand, but you flip a switch and your lights go on, you turn a tap and the water comes out. It's what it is. But it does impact them. One day you're gonna turn that tap and there won't be any water there. Then what?
Or you'll turn that tap and it'll be $5 a gallon.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you'd need at least that one workshop and then the two public hearings, just to explain to people who might want to listen to what you have to say, and tell them in 5 years, we're going to do the comp plan or whatever in the future. But yeah, I think people do need to understand that this is a change. And it's a good change in some ways. You're coordinating, we're going to try and figure out what the city actually owns. We're doing all these things. So you want to let people know that too.
Once the amendment goes through, and this is the plan after that's done, how inaccurate or out of date would the plan be then? Or is it relatively current then? So you could say that we really don't have to update this thing for another 5 years, anticipating future
I
growth.
think we covered all the bases.
So we've got a good plan in place.
Yeah.
And no need to move forward to reinvent the wheel on the plan then.
Not at this point.
Not at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, something new comes up.
A housing bust.
Hopefully not for another 9 months.
Well, but again, so let's sort of recap where we are. We want to be able to get out to folks an information flyer or page out to, all the city residents. It talks to them in clear language as to why they should be interested in this. In other words, try to stay away from the bureaucratic
Yeah.
language and talk to them about, why should they care about capital facilities? It's water, it's sewer, it's the utilities, it's streets, it's sidewalks. And
Ask him to imagine that those things weren't available,
that's a good point. And the fact that we know that some of that stuff is aging or that we're having growth and we need more. And, it comes at a cost. And so how do we plan for that to make sure that those services are there and are there at the lowest possible cost?
Okay, so flyer,
Flyer,
plain language flyer, is that a thumbs up?
That's a concept.
yeah.
Okay.
I think we work with Philip to get something in the paper in advance of a workshop.
I agree.
Workshop,
Workshop,
I think that, I don't know, look for thumbs, PC hearing, CC hearing.
yeah.
And does all of that with the planning commission have to be done before the city council does?
Mhm.
The workshop and the one, R1.
What's
Some
the
things
timeline?
can-
Kind of go
some-
together?
Some things can be confirmed
Okay.
about that, yeah. But that is a question, what the timelines are.
Okay.
And what would be the schedule for this?
That's what he said, timeline. You guys get to do that. You don't want your hair grow grayer.
It might just fall out. Right? I'm not sure it can get any grayer than it is.
Well, you have, 2 weeks? It's got to be in the paper, and everything else. So you do need a timeline for sure.
What if I throw this out there? July timeframe for public workshop. August timeframe for planning commission public hearing. Let the city council establish their own timelines about August or September for their hearing. So,
That sounds good, but you can probably even move that further forward. When do you get that information out to the public?
August is a hard month.
Well, that's for the
To get
planning
anything
commission
done.
hearing, the workshop you were talking about in July, correct?
And does the city council meeting have their meeting the same as the fair, or did
it's
they,
like
did
the
they move it?
11th of August.
It's
super
before.
So they
early.
moved it before the fair, okay.
Yeah, Philip's pretty good about getting that stuff out there pretty quick.
But we want to think through what those messages are. We want to get out there too. So if you want to say you want to notice out to city residents and something in the paper shortly before, that means you really have to have that ready to go if we're going to do something in July. 2 weeks before that, something in July. And there's a fair amount of work that goes to put that stuff together to make sure that it's polished and it hits the mark.
And that's not all he's working on.
I won't be the only one doing this. Rihanna and Carolyn will be involved in this part too, since this is
Their baby.
their baby. June, the media push, the information out. July, the workshop to get everybody on the same page. August, the hearing to get input from the community to you.
Shall we talk about,
I want to know who's doing what.
shall we talk about new members?
Are we okay with that course of action? Ben, is there anything else you need before we?
This is yours, right? This,
Yeah.
This is yours, so I don't need anything except to know if you're expecting staff to do all the details of this, or if planning commissioners are doing any details, or getting the word out, and making sure that you bring 3 people to the meeting.
Well, I think we all have an obligation in our community contacts to talk about this, let folks know. I'm happy to look at the flyer to, to say, is this going to generate interest or put people to sleep?
So do you want a July PC meeting, or are you going to use that as a workshop?
July PC, we'll just plan to not discuss comp plan, or maybe prep for a workshop or something, but
Okay.
not use that for other purposes. Okay, everybody's good with Jeff reviewing the flyer?
Mhm.
Okay,
And anything you need help with, you can call me. Or you could call me.
We can do
you
that.
sure about that?
Within limits, yeah, I know, you like to,
Be specific.
true, I'm
Words
still learning that.
are-
I'm here, you notice.
I feel like I know what to do. I hope it meets what your intentions are with it.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. Thank you all. Good conversation
On the new candidate.
on the new candidates.
You know, have one.
Okay,
person interview.
can I just say, both resumes are impeccable. So can we have more than one? Seriously, I mean, they're both, both qualified. I mean,
We do have a position called an ex officio position, meaning that if we have a decision to be made and more than a quorum of you are compromised in that decision in some way or unavailable to make that decision, then we can call an ex officio to have a 3-member body at least to make a decision.
that did not make this decision any easier for me.
Yes.
Well, don't you all just hear the 2 candidates? Don't they have to go in front of the city council too?
What usually happens is planning commission conducts the interview, they make the recommendation to city council, and city council usually accepts. That you guys know what you're doing on that. I haven't ever seen them request an interview and happen to be there at the.
Yeah, I was there, so they just asked me some questions, yeah.
Well, we have one candidate here, so we can hear from that one candidate. How do we want to deal with the other candidate who's not here for whatever reason? I mean,
Who was the other candidate?
Charles.
yes.
I think he was at that meeting where you were at.
He says that he's a former mayor of
He was the mayor before the mayor now.
That's,
Portland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Portland,
I was
sorry.
gonna say. Frank was.
So
mayor.
Mr. Lawson's here.
Oh,
And
Tony.
Tony?
Yeah.
I don't want to, I guess, omit Charles Hales, because I'm not a great trustor of technology, let's put it that way. So can we interview Tony today? How might we, and then Charles at the next one?
Sewer process,
Did he say
so
he was,
absolutely.
you said he was gonna be on here?
Mhm. Sewer process, absolutely. However you want to get to a recommendation.
Yeah, I
is-
just wondering what the urgency, is. I mean,
I won't be on vacation next month, so I'll be here.
so
yes.
why do you want to be on the,
It's strictly just a sense of public service. I saw Ben's, I guess it was Ben who put the notice in the Pioneer. And I'm retired. I moved here 3 years ago. My wife and I love living here. And I've got some skills that they can be used, and I'm happy to volunteer, try to help my community.
what do you see as the issues that we're facing? And what's your sense?
Well, I lived in California from 1960 through 1989 and on the peninsula and saw incredible growth in that period of time. There was no freeway that went from all the way from San Francisco to San Jose at that time when I lived there. I lived in Hillsborough the last 30 years, and again, incredible growth, going from a town of 25,000 to now 110,000. This area is going to, in my opinion, experience incredible pressure. And it's Stevenson especially, because Hood River and white salmon have had so much pressure, and the growing pains they have, and what has driven prices up is going to happen to Stevenson.
Mhm.
And so I feel like now is the time you start to put in place whatever planning you want to have done in order to have Stevenson be the town you want it to be in 20 more years. It's happening so rapidly, it needs to happen quickly now, where people really have to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on. I see it just around me in how many homes are starting to be built, the amount of money that's coming into the area. This is Stevenson, I believe, will become the next white salmon or Hood River, just from the pressure from Portland. And we see that in what's happening with the pressure at Multnomah Falls on the old highway, the weekend traffic that's coming here. Now it's a double-edged sword. You have a great deal of people wanting to be here and come here, and that brings money. When you have more houses, you've got more property tax, and if you manage how that develops, you can get a property tax to contribute more to the capital improvements that you may need to make for the city. So to me, it's a puzzle. How do you plan 10 years down the road so that you can actually afford the city you have and have a quality of life that matches what you were looking for 10 years ago? So I think that's what my take is all about, managing what's going to happen really in the next 10 years. I think is going to be the most critical time for this city.
I'm in total agreement. That's what I would have said 10 years ago.
What would you say now? I'm just curious, the way you said that made me curious.
No, when I was getting into planning in my infancy, that was my whole point was that you have to start planning for the future, and not having a plan is not a plan. And so Tony spoke to a lot of that and has seen firsthand that experience that I hear that he doesn't want to see repeated here.
There's something good that happens where people hit the mark, and there's other places where they missed. And if you can have your batting average high and make as few mistakes as possible, you're better off, obviously.
The better the plan, the less likely you are to have those things slip through the cracks.
Yeah,
What are your favorite things about Stevenson living here?
Well, I was born in Mount Vernon, Washington in 1954. Grew up on a little lake outside of town. And we moved to Palo Alto in 57 after Sputnik went up. My dad was a high school teacher, and all of a sudden he had a scholarship to Stanford. So that's how I ended up in California. And when I got to California, I thought, where did all the trees go? And the Northwest has always been home for me. And the funny thing is that I've absolutely enjoyed this spring. The fact that it's been raining this long is wonderful to me. My wife thinks it's a little bit off, but I like the small town nature of it. I like the river. I like the mountains. I just think it's an idyllic place. I am encouraged that right now, Stevenson is not Hood River, and it doesn't have the pressure of white salmon. I'm encouraged that it's at a point in time that it can try to hang on to some of that quaintness as the pressure to become larger increases.
Yeah, I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail.
Myself as well.
I did it in sections, and then my last section, I ended at the Bridge of the Gods, and I said, I'm just gonna hang around.
That's what you did. How many years ago?
It was 2011.
Uh-huh. Yeah. What else can I tell you?
well, you told us what you like about Stevenson. What don't you like about Stevenson?
Oh. That's a tougher one. I'm not going to be able to come up with anything really. And the reason for that is that if you understand large cities and small towns, in a large city, in your shoulder to shoulder, it can be one of the, well, for lack of a better word, loneliest places going, because your nature is to avoid a little bit of contact, so you feel like you've got some personal space. If you are comfortable with a small town and the fact that when you go to the grocery store, everybody knows you, and that's just the way of life, and it doesn't bother you. So the things about Stevenson that I think would bother some people is that it's a small town. It really doesn't bother me. And that's what, in fact, I kind of enjoy that. So the picadillos, if you will, of a small town, I can't say that I don't like it, because that's just the nature of a town.
It's interesting, some of the conversations I've had with folks here over the last few months, sort of asking that question. The biggest thing I get back from folks that have been here for, I'd say probably 10 years or more, is the comment I get back from them is, we're losing a sense of community. And I think that's a pretty telling observation. And I can understand it too. You know, we
Is it
don't-
because you think because they see more people that they don't know who they are?
Well, I think that's it in part, but I don't think that's it exclusively. No, I don't.
I wonder how much of that is over the past 2 years with COVID. You're not going to church, kids didn't go to school.
I think
You
that probably,
encapsulated yourself so much more.
yeah, I think that's contributed to
Yeah.
it, certainly.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with that. This is Mary's hobby horse. Is that it's becoming unlivable for certain people. We don't have affordable housing or enough,
Mhm.
And we're getting people, an influx of people from Portland and California, and they're driving up the prices of everything. So,
I think there's different values, different expectations, and it's different, and I think that's the challenge we have. I mean, you don't stop change. Change is coming.
Yep.
It's how do you deal with it?
Good job.
The homeless housing council meets on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. From those of you who are interested, so you can call public health and listen to that. Of the difficulties we're having with affordable housing here.
And that's kind of, I mean, it's all
No,
over
I'm
the
not
state.
gonna
I
work on that meeting.
with people that are, from the Woodby Island area and Seattle area, and there's just, they're being priced out of everything there. So this looks more affordable, but it's still, to get something that's in that price range that they're looking at, they're having to go to the Dalles. Like, isn't there anything closer? No, I mean, even rentals right now are few and far between, except for Ben's house.
It's a legitimate issue.
Tony, you say you're retired,
Yes.
but I assume you're probably not just sitting around trying to think of something to do. You have the time to commit to, not just our meetings, but being, I think, an active planning commission member. Sometimes we've got committees that we do, or we chip in and try and help Ben out. So it's not a couple of hours once a month. It's more.
Yeah, and give me the bone to chew on and I'll chew on it. There's, being retired is you look for things to do. So the more that I can contribute, happier I'll be.
Does he get stars next to his name then?
The Lions
I'll
Club
pass
meets
the
members.
As fast as anybody, just using two fingers.
The Lions Club needs members.
Now, you know why I gave Mary that response. I'm gonna go, she'll recruit you for everything. So
I'm the president, so.
Okay,
Yes,
I've got it in.
yes, you do. We're always looking for a few good men and women.
We have one additional question. Is there anything about you or your activities in the city that is likely to cause a conflict of interest?
I don't think so. I own a house, I'm building a house. That's it.
Fair enough. Thank you for being interested.
You bet.
so we're gonna wait to hear from the other guy.
Yeah, Charles, I think so. I'd like to.
Unless I mean, the only time we really get short is when, someone's sick and it gets down to where there's just two of us showing up. It's difficult. I think the four of us tend to make it pretty regularly. So.
Let's see if. I assume there's a technical difficulty here because we haven't heard anything else, but if Charles has decided he's not interested.
Then Tony gets a phone call.
Then he gets a phone call, I guess, yeah.
I hope I get a phone call either way.
Okay, and so let's see if we can do something with Charleston. July meeting?
If I make that call tomorrow and find out that he's not interested, are you comfortable with Tony going?
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
So you can take a seat here next meeting if that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Ben, staff report or
We
thought of
skipped
the day
over,
or what did we skip? We skipped around. some.
Birthday celebration.
We got the short one.
of the month.
Oh, the conditional use permit review?
That's embarrassing. I pulled the wrong draft document. Let me grab that.
While he's doing that, I'm going to tell you all about the Grange's next film, Critical Issues of Our Times, June 28th. And it's Voices of Resilience, Insight from Injury. This is a film, it's short. It's about PTSD. And we've got our film discussion series this year, and we're addressing human resilience because of our last 2 years. So a lot of mindfulness and how veterans deal with PTSD. But as you all know, PTSD can hit anyone who has a traumatic experience. So that's June 28th. And our July 26th one is Almost Sunrise, Hope is on the Horizon. And that's also about American Afghan vets who are surviving through PTSD. And then July 12th, Meditation 101 with Melissa Matner she's from Underwood. She is a yoga master and a Buddhist, and she will teach us the basics of meditation, including types of meditation, how to get started, and how to support your practice. So
Where is that in where?
it's all Zoom, actually.
Okay.
The films, you can pick up the flyer at the library, but
Yeah,
you look for them on Canopy. And then we have a film discussion on the fourth Thursday of the month through Zoom. We're still not doing in person. And it's easy. David sends out a hyperlink and you just join the conversation.
Okay.
Hyper, and you go to meditation, hyperlink for meditation. How do those?
You need this.
All right.
So at the last meeting, you reviewed the conditional use permits and asked staff to draft the permit based on the previous one that was approved. This is the draft we came up with. It includes gave out all my copies, the 3 conditions of approval. 4 conditions of approval. Apply for the building permit to make sure that it's going to hang on the wall that you're hanging it on. That it's only valid for you, your business. Any future one would have to apply for their own. If they're not complying with the 4 conditions, then the permit is invalid, and that it's subject to periodic review when you typically do periodic reviews, which would be the October meeting of the following even year.
So if they sell it, it has to come down? Is that
Which business is this for?
5440, it's the used to be
sign?
Andrew's Pizza.
Or their sign?
And 3 and 4, should that be the proponent rather than the proposal? Okay.
If you're picky.
I have a huge wrench to kind of throw in at this point, and it doesn't involve this specifically, but it brought to mind an issue that I had in a previous small town with projection sign and the transfer of ownership from one to the other. And as the building became vacant, the building owner was not willing to remove the sign. And so we had to actually initiate a process and the inspection / code enforcement to be able to remove things like that. Because what was happening was the next occupants coming in and they were just sticking another sign under the existing one and moving forward, so.
Yeah, our,
Just something to,
our process would be the same for that. The lever that the cities use when they want to control that is to require some escrow account now, estimate what it's going to take to remove the signage later. Require them to put that into an escrow account for the future.
so we were having to catch it on the, the other side where it already had happened and how to enforce liens on property owners and stuff, which was not what anybody wanted to do.
That's the only method we have in place right now, is that one.
That's.
But if you have an escrow amount, is the city allowed to go onto a property and remove a sign?
Would probably need to be part of that agreement,
Okay,
putting everything in place,
Yeah.
that this can be used for this purpose, and we have the authority to
perfect.
do that.
So we're saying if it's no longer 5440, they have to remove that sign. But Brian,
They no longer have the ability to exceed the standard as they've done. And so if they can permit that sign within the standard, this issue came to you because beer and lodge exceeded 50 square feet. And so in order to exceed that 50 square feet requirement, they need to have the planning commission review that. In order to get you to say yes to the review, they said, this is a sign of outstanding design. And look, we're articulating this sign out. And so that is independent of beer lodge. And you all should agree that this is appropriate for the building and location.
okay, but if 5440 leaves this particular building,
Beer lodge need to come out. If the new applicant uses the projecting sign, which is less than 50 square feet.
oh, okay, all right.
Then we can do that.
Because I see Brian Adams is down here as a co-proponent. He owns the building, so if it's associated with that building, he's basically. Yeah, okay.
So are you asking a legal question? Are you saying if one of them leaves, but both names are on here, then it'd still be a,
It's still a valid
No,
conditional use.
if it's granted to a business entity and that entity
so if,
goes away, the
so,
ownership of the building is not what grants you the right to do.
okay,
Sign.
I didn't know if he
It's
was
the
asking a
business.
question and it wasn't answered.
Except in this case, you've got a proponent here that says both. So if one goes, but the other stays, what do you got?
Is the business still active?
It's how you interpret and.
Proponent is
Yeah.
the brewing company and.
I think it would.
So you could strike the owner if you wanted to be just business.
Well, yeah, if that's the intent, I
Isn't
wasn't
that
here
what
for
the
that.
code says is that it's the business?
It doesn't clarify.
I
But
think
the
the,
actual sign is.
Strike the name.
yeah, if you strike the name, then it goes to his question, because I could, if people can figure out something out, however they will, so.
Yeah.
Or do you want it to be easier and let that happen? I mean, those are decisions you can make too. In any case, you've got a review period in 2 years that you can tinker with it again.
Hopefully they'll stay in business for 2 years.
Well,
Come on, August,
yeah, that
give
is
a good
a
reason.
bit of a
Conundrum.
Because if he's a proponent, you can't just strike him off, right?
See a co-applicant for the,
As business owner or as property owner, he's listed. He was not here representing his interest at the hearing.
His dad was, I think.
Brian
no,
Adams
that's
wasn't,
not
the
Brian.
property owner wasn't here.
Can't you make that a condition that if the business goes away, the sign goes away?
I'm wondering if this got written in because somebody filled out the form that way. In other words, typically, maybe the business owner didn't know, and he goes, well, Brian Adams owns it, puts it both where, really, it's just the business that's doing it.
But we also just approved the beer lodge sign. Right? And so if the new one comes in and they want to use the beer lodge sign, well, then they can use that. But if they want to change it to their own shop, then that's a different sign.
I always had trouble with the name. I always want to go, got my first real estate thing. I had something I wanted to bring up. I looked at the maps about the path from the apartment complex to the elementary school. And there's not a road between Roosevelt and the school, right?
Mm,
So would that be something we'd have to?
Purchase right away for.
Okay. Has anybody decided what to do about that? Or?
And that'd be like a future phase. And so we talked to the property owner there and they're like, yeah, we thought about putting a fence over there, but the kids always walk through here, and so we don't want to cut off their access.
So are you gonna do this?
Do we
or
need a
no?
motion on this? Is there a motion on this?
I'm still pondering the name thing. So what, I mean, was Brian, was he part of the application process
Has to sign the application.
as the building owner?
Mhm.
Do we have an attorney?
We do.
Yeah.
To me, it's a question of the and.
It's very legal.
And if it's the business and, then the two have to be combined. If it's or, then it's granted to individually. But that's quite a legal question, which I'm not qualified to answer.
The sign is for the business,
Correct.
and if the business goes away, the sign goes away.
Well, that Brian Adams name's on there.
Well, that's what I mean. So, I
This-
think you should ask your attorney.
Maybe so. It says this conditional use permit shall be valid only for the applicant at the location above. It doesn't say only for that. I mean, Brian Adams is an applicant. And you can say and in there. I would argue that he's an applicant. So is 5440.
So what's your intent? And if your intent is only 5440, strike Brian. If the intent is to just wait and deal with that later, maybe just wait, or if the intent is to say, yeah, that signs of that size on that building are gonna be fine no matter what. You can.
Aren't we
leave
doing a
that
special
decision.
consideration for that sign?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm trying to pull up the application.
You mean the magic machine does not have it?
It does have it, of course.
Of course it does. Once you bring it up. so- I love the sharing. things.
For 5440 and then Brian Adams went away, they had a car accident or something. Then does that change it? I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah, good, you're right.
Yeah, so,
Are you planning on something?
no, not. We're getting along. So no, I'm not gonna run over Brian.
Applicant is Bolton Minister. I'm reading it small.
Mhm.
That's the applicant. Signature of applicant, signature of property owner, so he's not applying.
Yeah, Brian's not applying.
No, it just shows property owner as Brian Adams.
So I think you can strike Brian Adams' name.
Yeah. His
I would.
name,
Unless he objects.
And the letter was from Bolton Minister.
Well, I mean,
so I think that's.
Brian had to
clear.
agree as the property owner.
Right, that's why they have him sign
Yeah.
the
But
application.
he's not
He's
the
not an applicant,
applicant.
Yeah.
He just is a signatory on the application.
so he needs to be taken off this
would,
conditional use
yeah.
permit.
I'd take it off.
And more than likely, there's an agreement between Brian Adams and the business owner that the sign went in. They've got a separate agreement.
So what's your pleasure, folks?
Was the summer of 69?
Do you have to run it by legal on striking a name off of something?
No, this is your permit.
Yeah, I just use 54 Brewing and whoever applied if you want the name.
I would motion to remove Brian Adams' name and approve the conditional use permit 2022-01.
Second.
Got a motion in a second. Is there any more discussion on this weighting matter? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same side, motion carries.
Okay. Ready for updates?
Ready for updates?
Okay,
Notice there's no thought of the month.
there
It's
is
just
no
blank.
thought of the month this month.
We've been slacking in that department.
We have one last thing.
Did we? I thought we didn't. Oh, no, it was 2 months ago.
Go ahead.
Floodplains, we have been monitoring FEMA's effort to update the floodplain maps that were first adopted and only updated in 1986. And they recognize that things have changed and they didn't have complete information. So across the country, they're doing analyses of actual rainfall and the catchment basin and how fast water moves through. And so they started doing that in something like 2015, and they've got a draft set of maps that are out there circulating for public comments, and they will make those effective relatively soon. That will trigger an amendment to our floodplain policies, which will come to you guys at some point. I think that amendment is really just going to be changing the name of the 86 maps to the 2022 maps, but waiting for Department of Ecology to feed back to us about anything else that they see within the floodplain change. So anyway, that'll come to you. It's all initiated by FEMA and Department of Ecology. So that's something to look out for the second half of the year. The Forest Service was the lead agency installing all the community gateway signs and destination signs in the gorge. So when you come into Stevenson this way, where it says welcome to Stevenson, a small greenish sign that was installed by the Forest Service. When you drive west out of town, there's a small sign that says Pacific Crest Trail. That was done by the Forest Service. There's a very big sign out there by the Bonneville Dam trailhead for the PCT. That was a Forest Service sign. Well, that was all done 25 years ago or more. We're seeing them deteriorate. They are going to replace all those signs, just replace all the signs to fix everything. As part of the replacement this time, they're going to have maintenance agreements with different communities to make sure that they're maintaining them. So the Forest Service is off-footed for doing this every 25 years. And so the City Council will be presented with that. But as part of working with them, we are hoping to change our gateway sign from the two-leg pedestal or two-leg sign that we have to the masonry base pedestal that's out there, like the North Bonneville trailhead. And I think that is what's circulating through the Forest Service public comment period right now. But they're leading that, and should give some new signs as part of it.
Did they, there's a sign out there that points to the lodge.
Yep, that one too.
Did they change it? Because, I mean, it used to say 18-hole golf course. It's not an 18-hole golf course.
They just scratched the one off. It's all good.
Being over it.
It got difficult now.
I mean, is that something that we do or?
They did. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Those signs are paid for by the person who wants the sign, I think,
The
aren't
lodge.
they?
Forest Service. And so that one's going to be replaced by the Forest Service. And then they'll have a maintenance agreement with the sign owner to keep it going in the future.
This was my first complaint when I first joined the commission, was that sign on the Napa store. You know, it was like, I don't feel so much being welcome to town as being scolded by my grandfather. You know,
You mean the mural? Or what?
Keep Skamania green or what
Oh,
is it?
it's
What
a
does it say?
mural.
Yeah. My Granddad like going.
Probably need more of that.
Okay, what else? we got?
Probably BNR wish they had had the updated floodplain map when they started their little project down there. Yeah, they've been fighting the water a bit. How is the community pool?
Community pool is open, and, has attendees.
I saw a bunch of cars.
I
up
saw
there,
the
and I
parking
said,
lot was pretty full the other day. Yeah.
I heard it was graduation. Somebody went up there to use a community pool and they thought it was all community pool and they go in there, there were just 5 kids in there. and it
Oh,
was-
that could be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was actually graduation is why. it was
I don't know
full.
when graduation.
City council held their retreats and it turned into a 2-part retreat. So they got to the point where they established their top 3 priorities. And so one was governmental health. And so that includes public outreach and internal procedures. Second one was infrastructure, and the third was long range planning. And so we're in the process of developing words to put into a strategic planning sense. And so the long-term land use planning, they focused a lot on housing. And so I imagine that the city council is really going to be tapping into you guys a lot to help them solve the housing issue that came up tonight. It comes up all the time. So hope to get some joint meeting together. I hope to. I don't know whether they hope to or not. Joint meeting together between you all and them so that you're on the same page and they know what to expect when
Mhm.
you make some recommendation there. But it was a really good facilitated strategic planning workshop there that allowed them to get their goals in place. And so I think it was a really good use of my Memorial Day weekend.
What was the facilitator? Who was it?
Allison
A little bit.
Hart. She also did facilitation work for the chamber and the EDC recently and nationwide. Her father was a GP forester, Forest Service related in some way, so she's got the tie to the community. Mural process. So I think in 2020 you adopted a 2-part mural process. So instead of all murals coming before the planning commission as part of the bureaucratic review, some can go straight to a staff review if they're endorsed by a downtown interest group, and SDA being the.
Is there a request for one?
And there is a request for one. So SDA recently gave their endorsement for one on the pot shop. And so when they get all their applications in, that'll go through staff review instead of planning commission review. And we'll be able to see how that process works for
Skamania
you.
green.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say that.
5. Just like the Napa store. Are there limits to what they can put on a mural?
In order to be considered a mural, they can't have any commercial impact. So when they gave some of their first drafts to me, I said, okay, what's the smoke rolling out of your camper van?
Or anything that refers to green.
Yeah. So, and I told them I'd be stricter about that as the staff person. But if you want to take that proposal to the planning commission, maybe they don't care as much. There's 5 people there and more. Yeah.
Flatly denied. Send it out the door.
Did you say that out loud?
Reported. I was never here.
You hear that, Joanna?
We can go back there to make sure there's no hand. There is a hand. Hi, Johanna.
Hi, Ben. Can we go back in time for a minute?
Yes,
The permit on the agenda, was that? Did you guys make a motion to approve that or just remove Brian's name?
it was to remove and approve in one motion.
Remove and approve. Okay, that's all I needed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last one on there, shoreline access, planning. That's the grant we got from Department of Ecology. So that grant agreement with DOE has been signed and we will go out for requests for proposals from consultants to get that done. This is the one where we are acknowledging that these faster growth bigger jurisdictions have projects that trigger shoreline substantial improvement permits, shoreline substantial improvement reviews that trigger adding public access. We don't have that fast growth or the volume of permit reviews in order to improve shoreline access. And so we need to be a little bit more proactive in our planning. And so this will be proactive to lay out what we think are appropriate shoreline public access sites and trails between sites, and identify those on a plan, have conversations with property owners to say, does this even work for you? If it doesn't work, then we'll remove that from the plan. For those that it does work for, well, sorry, it'll also include a budgeting component for easement acquisition, property acquisition for those areas, so that the city council can start setting aside money to acquire shoreline public access sites. For owners who buy into or allow the city to buy into that public access site, then that component of the permit review is going to be a lot simpler. They'll know the outcome in advance if they get into the providing public access before.
So will this record where all the public accesses are, even the
Yes.
ones that are in question?
Yes.
I think I need some clarification. Homeowners just can't say, well, I don't like it, so take it away. Specifically the one up by Rock Creek, that is the only access there off of Iman.
Mhm.
And that, so are you thinking of buying up that access and putting in another one?
This will, I don't know the answer to that, but the process will provide the answer to that.
And there will be maps showing all the public accesses? Because there's a public access right on the sidewalk on the west side of assisted living.
Mhm.
That was put in there specifically because there was no access from there. And I know the sign has disappeared
Mhm.
and nobody knows that there's an access, but my memory's not gone yet. So, things like that do need to be recorded. And if we need to change it, then fine, but we need to know those things that have disappeared
Yeah,
too.
so first component of it will be an inventory of the existing sites. And then an idea where new sites could be. And then review to see if those new sites that could be, make sense for that property owner. If they don't make sense, then we remove from the plan and we'll deal with them at the permit stage.
And the issue up there in Rock Creek was just trespass. And I think property owner does have a right to press that.
Well, the property owner wasn't the one whose access was on his property, was it? It was the other owner across the way that complained.
I don't know. Well, we just didn't have a structure in order to deal with that problem.
Yeah.
And so this will provide us the structure. That's all I have queued up.
One of the things you might want to put on your future things, Ben, many months ago, we talked about how you can preserve your affordable housing. And there was a way that like Aspen and Cheyenne or Montana, Wyoming, those deeds, I sent you that link. There's a name for it. You preserve the affordability of the housing that you're building for like 30 to 50 years with a deed. So the house cannot be sold for $1 million, when you build it for 200,000. And that, so that's one way of perhaps keeping the community affordable for people.
Well, it just opens up a different can of
Yeah,
worms,
different
because
can.
who gets access to that regulated price point?
People whose income is at that regulated price point.
And if you put that on the comprehensive plan and tell people about it, you get a huge turnout.
Yeah, you bet.
Amen to that.
Any other?
August?
Amy?
Yeah,
And
we live with it. Yes, sir.
anything, any final comments? thoughts?
Nope.
Sorry, we already reminded you to try to.
That's okay.
Would you like these?
Sure. Thank you. Any thoughts?
You
Lots
just
of
said
them, but.
When is the election? August.
August 2nd.
August, so there's a meeting
Primary.
between now and then.
Lots of elected stuff.
Are there gonna be debates?
It's like we live in a home.
I don't know. I'm doing lots of, I'm doing lots of interviews. but
Uh-huh.
You gavel out.
Yes. Stand adjourned.
It's in Connect. We live right next to the building.
Oh,
Yeah, so that's why I knew your name. It took me a minute, but
David, pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure to meet you too.
okay.
August, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I know they're really neat.
Beautiful.
I don't know if we should go there. or not.
no.
Has anybody heard?
All right, now.
Has anybody
Hear about the pool.
heard?
All right.
Nice to meet you too.
What, we had a discussion about this on Sunday. I think.
Okay.
We need to twist arms, welcome, beg, grovel.
And do the same thing to be what we do.
No, I haven't.
To
And,
train.
You can call me Davey like everybody.
I think we got a full
Okay.
schedule for it already. So we've got certain open hours.
David, where did you live before
Whether-
2011?
So Greg
UT.
is our.
Oh, okay.
We have a good
accent.
So let's make sure it's used.
Alabama.
Alabama.
A long way.
Been there.
When
Rode
is
through
it?
it.
So
you're my neighbor.
It's open every day.
You know your neighborhood. You look up on the hill, it's White House.
White House with the black one. You and I met on the train.
Yes, that's what you look familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yep. Yeah, and his barbecue pavilion is down on the.
You did drop in.
Only,
Yeah.
about,
See if I can wrap myself.
didn't do the whole thing.
Yeah,
I did
Ben
about
told me that you.
800 miles.
Yeah, Ben have answers. Yeah.
Service members. I got numbers off,
Uh-huh.
so I just took. it
Give you
like
extra
500
sheriff's
miles at a
patrol.
time.
Well,
For
then
security.
you did it when it was in 2011, when you weren't a spring chicken.
Well, and
I did it when
I
was
started in
20 years old.
I started in
What
2007,
happened?
and I did chunks of it up until 2011. Now they, all the people that I know, they're making it, it's just a hellscape.
Was there, did anybody answer?
There's a light inside. No
Oh,
one
yeah.
came to the door.
Yeah,
It is
lots
bad.
of sections, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if you know
And
anybody.
places where it hasn't burned,
Maybe the sheriff.
trees are dying.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Do you need somebody to take your picture? I'm a good photographer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Do you have a name you want? By the way, I'm not contagious. I have, I know. I did an inhaler for the first time right before I came in here. I have bronchitis from allergies. But when I was in the Caribbean for 2 weeks, did not have one problem.
Oh, well.
So I really think you need to go back. That's my, I need to go back. Yeah, but I don't think doing an inhaler. Bob. Bob, let me- We might need to move the box, or do you just want your shoulders?
Which one?
Okay,
Is he doing okay?
I want to get the flags as good
He's
as.
looking at the pool.
Okay, you
Well, I
smile.
went up to the house and I
And
knocked
then
on the
we'll do
door,
it.
nobody came,
You want the whole top of the flag or do you want more you?
very
I'm
overgrown.
gonna do a few of both.
It is very open.
And I was
Alright,
gonna
get
ask,
the box out.
you know,
Top of the
Pat's
flags.
group does
Yeah.
yard work. Do you know him enough to ask if
Okay,
he
tell me
needs
if you
any
want
help?
more
No,
No?
no.
Okay.
And I.
Yeah, we just had the last, we
He was
moved
working
in
at the
August, we
pool.
just had the
Yeah,
last piece
he
of
was
our
working at the pool.
house, glass doors put in.
His commute is 2 minutes and 32
We're
seconds.
done.
Well, he's
How long?
he was a nurse.
Well, we
for
have
a
family who
long
does it,
time.
so
Oh, okay.
they just had a baby. so
Okay,
it's just-
all right.
Everything takes so
Well, I'll
long.
probably
We
see
just
him up
broke
at the
ground
pool.
on another house next door to
Well,
our
good to
house.
hear that
Oh,
he's
cool. So
walking
you're staying in the
fine.
area.
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's at school, yeah.
He's a-
That's probably a good sign.
So built another
Yeah.
house.
I understand that.
And, you know, I'm hoping it's done. in
You're
a
good?
year.
Thank you.
Wow, just appliances alone, we found that house when it was basically framed and that was it. And I didn't want the appliances he was putting in. I mean, it would be done in August and this was April, trying to find appliances.
Oh, yeah, that was the worst time.
And you can't close, because we have a little mortgage on it. You
Mhm.
can't close if you don't have your oven in and your dishwasher in.
That was the dishwasher. You cannot have the laundry.
Yeah, that's
But-
fine. Or a refrigerator.
Or, yeah, but you
Yeah.
gotta have, otherwise it's not, I don't, will they even give you a vinyl? Without it? No, I didn't think so.
No. So who's building your new
We have a
home?
plan. Like,
It's being done
for,
by,
move forward with the comp plan stuff. so
technically me,
Good.
but it's, the designer
They didn't speak up.
is, Cross the River Tom Owen.
Haven't heard. That's amazing.
You've seen the house that I'm in, that.
Yeah.
Tom
I have to
Martin went in.
replace all those. I can do that at home if you want.
And he
You
designed
pay me-
the
I already did.
Craftsman 2 houses up on the same side that I'm on.
So have you got another set of those?
Good. As long as you know
Yes.
Put in mind?
Yeah.
designers, you know.
And he knows all the stuff, so. he knows
That's-
it again.
How you doing, say your phone?
That's not my
That's mine.
fault.
Okay, okay. I was trying to give it away. Thank you, guys.
You know, I wish someone would take it
Yeah.
sometime.
Well, good. So when do you expect to be done?
Hopefully before it starts raining. So November.
Starts.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
That's pretty fast.
We'll see. They're gonna start the foundations in. They're gonna start framing in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
We'll have a roof on it, within
Right.
6 weeks or so.
Awesome.
Where is this?
Angel Heights.
Angel Heights Road?
He's building next door.
Or
Where
next
the-
door to your house?
Yeah. Have you been up on Angel Heights Road?
Oh, yeah.
There's a contemporary home right at the very end of the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I remember walking through and it was under construction.
Yeah.
I
and
I used to
for-
deliver the mail up there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So anyway, we bought that house 3 years ago and there was a empty lot next to it. And so we're building on that empty lot.
Did you buy that lot at the same time?
Yeah, in fact, it
Smart.
was so close to the house that was a contingency of the sales. You can't get that lot for us with one.
Good.
And the owners of the house actually owned the lot. And they knew that was gonna happen, so they wouldn't sell it until the house was sold.
Well, hopefully you won't slide off into Rock Creek.
There's always this fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
So who's building the house?
Yeah, see, that's what I asked too.
It's Tom Owens is the designer and
He's the general.
I'm
contractor.
the general contractor.
Oh,
But it's just, Tom knows the subs and I work with him.
You want the old pages, Dave, here?
So far, so good.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially if it goes in a timeline you're happy with.
well, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah,
I
That's
gotta get
great.
the boat out of storage, so I got to start playing.
I love it. I love it. Well, good to see you again.
Likewise. Say hello to Bob. Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. And I hope to see you again.
Well, in all likelihood you will.
Yeah, there was a time there that I couldn't walk 20 feet without thing.
How worked out then?
Ben, have you and I actually met?
I came out to your place once. to Look at your fence, when you built that fence,
Yes.
or the.
That was-
Yeah,
before we even moved in.
in your backyard.
Yeah.
Still in the backyard.
Well, good to see you again.
Yeah. you too.
And hope to see you soon.
Sorry.
Oh, bad. So what's coming up on the agenda for next month?
Next month is fairly easy. I think we'll be able to, know enough